Hey, we're still celebrating Women's History Month on Garden and Beats. But did you know black and brown people across the world are reconnecting to their roots and redefining their relationships to the land by gardening and farming? And Black Gardener Talk is dedicated to sharing those voices to inspire all people of color and maybe even some that don't look like us to grow by any means necessary. But sometimes we need our own safe space to talk. Good morning, I'm Kamani and Koo, and this is Black Gardener Talk. And my guest today is Alexis Bumpers. Let's get it popped up, everyone. Throw some cherries in the room for Alexis, y'all. Hopefully you got the invite. Hey,
Hey.
you made it. You did it.
Yeah, I did it. Wow. Yeah, this is my first live for anyone else joining. So,
So, folks, throw some cherries in the room for obvious reasons. We'll talk about that later. Throw some cherries in the room for Alexis. Let's get right into it. I don't want to keep you too long because, it's Saturday morning. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Yeah. I got my black dragon fruit drink
Okay.
ready.
Well, I
So
got my water. So.
this is activated choco and red dragon fruit. To get me energized. I need a little bit energy, all right?
Okay, I might need to try that myself.
That's what's up. So, did you have a garden growing up?
So I actually did not have a garden growing up, but I did get exposed to gardening from my grandfather, who lives in Georgia. So my family's originally from the South, so we migrated up to. Well, I'm in the my father was in the military, so that's how I ended up in DC. But I always went back home to Georgia to see my grandfather's farm, and I always was intimidated by it. He had like all this acreage of land and food that was growing. I'm like, okay, that's cool. I want to do that one day, but I didn't know how. So I just was always inspired to do that just from seeing him garden.
Oh, so that's what's up. So, how did you start? Tell us about that. Tell us about you got to DC, you live in DC, and now you're gardening. I mean, you're not new to it. I mean, but you're kind of new to it, but not new to
Yeah, yeah. So I actually, it probably didn't start until like I was like in my adulthood years. So like my husband and I, when we purchased our home in DC, we came into some land in our backyard, and so actually even before that, but yeah, I'll talk back before that. But when we came into some land, that's when I was like, oh, you know what? I actually might be able to like, do this gardening thing like I've always seen my grandfather do. Not as much land as he has, but still I have enough to do something with it. And so I actually started just, growing some seeds, some herb seeds on my windowsill because I was intimidated by doing the real food, So I was like, let me see if these actually grow and, actually, live. And they did. And so I was like, you know what? Let me take it up to the next level and start growing some other stuff like tomatoes and squash and cucumbers on my deck. And so I did that. Um, they kind of, I didn't really get that much of a harvest, but I had, a tomato that came and I was inspired to continue to keep it up. So then, next thing we just started to just expand and grow into some raised beds. So my husband built some raised beds out back, and the rest is history.
That's what's up. How much food do you actually grow now?
So I actually like it's weird because as far as I'm trying to get to the point where, with all this going on with the food shortages across the country and stuff, I'm trying to get to the point where our garden, is sustainable for us to be able to like, grocery shop in our backyard. And we haven't gotten there quite yet, but I have been able to grow a lot. Like last year, I grew a lot of tomatoes, more than we needed. I grew a lot of cucumbers,
Yes.
more than we needed. Was able to give some away. Also, I grew a lot of squash and zucchini one year. So I think like each year I'm trying to, I have a different goal. So last year I was trying to grow as much food as I could. And I grew a lot, but there's some
Mm-hmm.
stuff that I could have did, grew more of like onions and things that we actually eat a lot of. So this year I'm actually trying to grow more stuff that we actually do eat. Like focus on, instead of growing a variety of things, I just want to grow what exactly we will eat so that we don't waste it and so that we can be sustained instead of having to go to the grocery store and buy up everything. So
That's what's I mean, I'm growing about 45% of my own food now.
That's
Um,
awesome.
my goal is to get to 50, but just like you said, try to grow stuff that we want to eat at the house, opposed to just growing a bunch of stuff and then we wasting it. But
Right.
I do try to grow different things every year, just to add. I want to see if I can do it. This year, my goal is to grow red okra. Um, and last year was loofah, and I was successful with the loofah. Oh, and
Yeah.
garlic. Make sure it took me a long time to really get garlic down, but I know it now. So you plant
Yeah.
it out in October, and then you harvest it around July. So I got it. And before I
Okay.
was just planting garlic at any point in time, and it just never worked. But now I got it. But
Yeah.
that's what's up. Your first garden mistake. Talk about it. What did you do wrong?
My first garden estate was starting seeds too late. So, I like, for those that are new to gardening, first thing you probably should know is to know your gardening zone that you're in. USDA, there's a website you can learn what your garden zone is by putting your zip code, I believe. And so I didn't know. I think I started like tomatoes like late, like in the summer, and I was like looking back at pictures. I was like, that's why I didn't get that big of a harvest, because by the time they started like fruiting and you know get turning red, it was like winter.
Yes.
So I think that probably was my first big mistake, was just knowing when to plant different seeds. Because I my thing is I want to start planting everything from seed instead of having to buy these like seedlings from these expensive big box stores, so and nurseries. So
Oh, that's what's up. Two Green Thumbs is in the room. He said he started his seeds late too. I'm a late seed starter all the time. I
yeah.
have not started any seeds
Oh
yet.
wow. Okay. All right.
I'm a late starter. From your first mistake to your first mistake to your first success. What was your first success that was like, I can do this. I can do this.
You know, I had a lot of mistakes and a lot of successes, but I will say, I guess my first real success was growing zucchini. Well, I don't know. I never think of my first success because I feel like I had a lot of successes, but zucchini was something that I didn't think. I mean, I don't really eat zucchini like that or squash, but I just planted the seed and watered. I barely even fertilized. I didn't know what I was doing like the first real year that I started gardening, so I didn't really feed the plants. But that turned out to be a success. Just planting a zucchini seed, and it just took off, and I had more zucchini than I could even use. So
So
yeah.
what made you want to grow zucchini? You said you don't really eat it, but what
Yeah,
you just want to do it? You just want to put it in the ground
I
just to
just
see
wanted
if
to.
it will grow.
Yeah, I just wanted. At that point, I was experimenting, and I actually, if I do eat zucchini or squash, it's like mixed into something. I don't eat it just like sauteed, but my family will eat it. My husband eats it, so I just like could use some zucchini, squash. I'll just plant that too and see what happens.
Yeah, that's what's up. Shout out to Mr. Bumpers. I saw him come in the room. Shout out, Mr. Bumpers.
Oh yeah.
So what is a lot of people in the room right now, and I want to get into it while we have a lot of your peoples in the room and
Mhm.
supporters of you. What advice would you give a new gardener? You've been a new gardener, and now I would say you're a novice gardener now. What advice would you give a new gardener?
A new gardener, well, I would, for those that are interested, like aspire to garden, I would give them the advice to just start, because I think a lot of times we're intimidated by gardening because we see all these different gardening profiles and gardens, and we're like, how do I do that and keep something alive and actually harvest something from it? Just start, because that's how you learn how to garden and grow food. Like and also too, I think that in addition to knowing your zones, don't be intimidated by the amount of space or lack of space you have, because you can grow food pretty much anywhere, whether it be outside with a lot of space or a little bit of space, or even indoors. And even if you have limited light, there's ways around it. Like grow lights are available. There's so many ways to grow your own food. So just start and learn, from your mistakes.
That's what's up. Tell us about your grow light setup. I mean, I've seen your posts. I watch you frequently on Instagram. Tell us about that whole setup because you got a whole lot going on right
Yeah, I got a lot. That's new this year. So each year, like I said, I like to take it up the next level. So this year, a goal of mine was to grow everything from seed instead of having to buy seedlings. So I started my seedlings indoors, and in the past, I have started them indoors, but I started them near my back window that has a lot of south facing light, and so um that didn't have a lot of space because for what I wanted to do this year. And so I was like, how can I, find somewhere that I can grow stuff that doesn't have a lot of light or that has light. And so I got creative and found space in my HVAC room. It's dark,
now.
but I bought these grow lights and have like a tiered shelf and just put the seeds and seedlings on the shelf and added the grow lights, and they've been taking off. Like, I'm just surprised by it. And I'm slowly transitioning stuff outdoors in my little mini greenhouse so they can, harden off and stuff. But yeah.
Okay, where do you usually buy your products from? I mean, you say you got a mini greenhouse, you got these grow lights. Where did you get them from? People might want to know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, everywhere. I seeds everywhere. I like to support small businesses and especially Black owned businesses. So I've gotten my seeds from Melanated Organic Seeds. Um, the Okra Lady, I've gotten some seeds from her. I buy stuff also too from like Etsy vendors. Um, Now I'm getting into trying to buy seeds from seeds that are specific variety that grow best in this season or in the heat. So I look for specific type of varieties from like bigger suppliers like Gurney's and Burpee, Home Depot, like the big box stores. As far as like my greenhouse, I think I got that from Amazon for like $40. It was pretty cheap.
Oh,
So
that's
um,
what's up.
yeah.
And I just asked because, sometimes people think gardening costs a lot, but if you shop around, you look around, you can get some stuff fairly cheap. I love to go to Aldi's and
Lidl and Aldi. Yes, I forgot about those.
Aldi's and Littles or Lidl's or
Lidl.
Lidl's,
Yeah.
one of those. And also I
Yeah.
like to go to Big Lots. Um
Yes, big lots too.
yeah, and then there's a place here in Maryland. I'm not sure if it's worldwide, but it's called Roses. And that's over in Forestville, Maryland. If you live in the
Oh,
DC area, Roses, they got some really good stuff for gardening
okay.
um over there. Let me see. Where's my next question? How has gardening changed your life since you started? Let's talk about that. Let's get a little deep.
Gardening, like I before gardening, like I always wanted to have a hobby. I just didn't ever have like a real hobby like a lot of people do or some people do. And so I've always wanted to get into a hobby, but I just couldn't think of what it was. I just stumbled, like it wasn't like I was searching for gardening as a hobby. It just became that. And gardening changed my life because it's been super therapeutic for me. As far as like slowing me down, as far as, the hustle and bustle of life in general, it kind of just when I garden, I'm outside with just me, my thoughts, the plants, and I just, am able to just slow down and relax. And so it's just been very therapeutic for me as far as gardening.
That's what's up. I love that. I mean, we have the same story. You know what I'm saying? Gardening actually saved my life. So I agree with you 100%. Two green thumbs and gardening is probably one of the top hobbies. So that's what's up, Green Thumbs. Thank you for joining us, Green Thumbs. Where do you spend most of your time in the garden? Like in my garden, I like to be under the cherry tree, like
Mhm.
Prince. So I think under the cherry tree or under the moon or something like that. I like to be under the cherry tree. Where do you like to spend most of your time in the garden? Is there a specific place in your garden that you like to go to on a daily basis? Maybe read, maybe journal, maybe just sit and relax, feed the baby.
Yeah. So actually, it's so funny how I talk about gardening and slowing me down, even though when I garden, it's like work, but it doesn't feel like work. So anywhere in any of the beds is like where I like to be at is just like looking at the plant, looking at what's happening, what new fruits coming in on the plants, but also when I'm not doing any maintenance work, I like to sit on the patio and just look up because it's kind of like our patio is tiered down. We have a slope backyard, and so the patio sits on the bottom part of the backyard, and I can just see the whole entire garden, just look up at it, and especially really nice at nighttime to look at it as well with the lights hitting it.
Oh, that's what's up. I need to see it at nighttime. Make sure you take some photos of it at nighttime
Oh
and
yeah,
post it
definitely.
and post them up. What is the hardest plant you ever try to grow?
The hardest plant was watermelon melons. Melons, I would say, had to be the hardest plant for me because I guess it requires a lot of water. And the first year I tried it, I had like a melon about the size of a golf ball. And then also, like, and then I think, like, because I don't know if we ever fenced in that year, but something was eating it. Like, every time it did get big enough and a nice size. And it was like I had these little, I don't even know what to call them, but they held them off the ground and something would come and just take it and eat it. And
Oh,
so
wow.
I just couldn't figure out how to, like, one, get it to a nice size so that I can harvest, and two, keep all the animals from eating it. And so I would say last year was the first year I had success with growing melons because I trellised them up.
Okay.
And I didn't have them on the ground, and I used stockings and like t-shirts to hold the weight on the trellis, and they
Okay.
turned out pretty successful. I had about like one good watermelon that we ate and harvested, and then about 3 cantaloupes. So I
Okay.
was pretty pleased with that.
With the watermelons, were they like the juicy baby ones that don't get really, really big? I mean, because
Yeah,
I'm thinking growing on a trellis could probably bring the
yeah.
trellis down.
I think
I
it
was
was Crimson Sweet was the variety. It was like a smaller variety that I
okay.
grew. I do want to grow the bigger ones, so that's going to be a challenge if I'm going to trellis. So I might have to grow them on the ground, but I had a smaller variety growing on the trellis.
Okay, that's what's up. But now you have a fence.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a fence too. Something was eating mine years ago, and I was like,
Mm-mm.
I got to do something about it. And I spent a good buck on getting that fence. You know, I didn't think it was gonna be that expensive, but it was worth it. You know what I'm saying? And
Mm.
then I kept the nosy neighbors away too, which
Yep.
it was a good thing. From the hardest plant you ever try to grow to the easiest plant that just shot up and was like took off, and you was like, "Holy moly, what's going on?"
Easiest plant. Easiest plant. Tomatoes seems to be like an easy one for me. Like, I don't really have to do too much with tomatoes. You water them, you give them sunlight, give them a little bit of like fish emulsion fertilizer, and they do their thing. Like, yeah, tomatoes. Me and tomatoes get along very well. So
That's what's up. Do you have any favorite tricks or tips that you picked up along the way that you can share with the folks out there? What's up, Urban Veggie Queen?
favorite tips and tricks. Favorite tips. I would just say favorite tips and tricks. I know making sure to feed your food, like feed your plants, like fertilizer is big. But I like to do organic, anything organic. I don't like anything that's not organic. Making sure that you maintaining a schedule of feeding your food. First year I didn't feed anything, but I mean, something grew, but it wasn't a lot. Another thing is, one of my favorites was protecting the tomatoes last year. Is something that I really was very successful at keeping, the bugs, especially the caterpillars, the hornworms, whatever, those
White
bugs that like,
flies, aphids.
yeah, all that likes to eat tomatoes and birds. I use it's like organza bags to cover them, to cover like the little tomatoes that they're fruiting in. And then I took off with tomatoes last year because I think that was one of the reasons in addition to feeding them. So that was a great tip, is make sure you use organza bags, or even just cover them with a netting of some sort.
So are those bags like those little netting bags, like, and they kind of like go over it and then you cinch it
I,
up together?
mm-hmm.
Okay,
I
yeah.
got those off of Amazon. really cheap. Like there's so many ways, and even if you know, you can find creative ways, like supplies you have at home that's just lying around, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna get rid of this. You might be able to repurpose it for something in the garden.
Yeah, I think I want to get those bags this year for the peaches.
Oh,
Like, but the good thing about the animals and the wild animals, so I got this really great peach tree that harvests about like at least 100 and some peaches, but I never knew when they were ready. So one day the squirrels came in and I saw like them all over the ground and there's like little squirrel bites into it.
oh
And I was like,
no.
they're ready because as they were growing, like the squirrels would not mess with them. And finally, I guess when they were ready, the squirrels was like, it's time. So I was like, it's
Mhm.
time. But I definitely want to protect them this time so the squirrels don't get a lot of them. I don't mind them getting any of them, you know,
Yeah.
but I don't want them to get all of them. You know what I'm saying?
Right, right. That's what
So
happened
yeah.
with my blueberries last year. I discovered the bags like after the blueberries were gone, but had I known, I would have covered the blueberries too, because all of them were gone.
Okay, that's what's up. I mean, I think it's a good thing that the animals sometimes come in, but yeah,
Hmm.
we want to protect them. Give them a little bit. Maybe what you could do, what I've done now, is plant a little bit in my front yard, and they just kind of like stick to the front yard. But when they're ready to see those peaches in the backyard, they're ready.
That's a good tip. I didn't know that.
That's good too. What are you currently growing this year? Like right now, what's in your seedlings? What did you start from seeds? And what do you got popping off with that?
So I have one of the first things I planted this year, and first new thing is onions. Onions is what's growing from seed. I have a bunch of those bunching onions, the bulb onions. I have peppers, the green bell peppers, jalapenos, Roma tomatoes, since we eat a lot of those. Growing broccoli again. So hopefully they'll make it through. I haven't really grown broccoli for the spring and summertime, so we'll see how that works. But I have
Yeah.
done it
Good
for.
luck. Good luck.
Yeah, I tried to get a variety that was like heat tolerant, so we'll see how that works. Cabbage as well. I'm trying cabbage for the spring and early summer, so we'll see how that works. Corn, potatoes, carrots, let's see, lettuce, strawberries, melons again, squash, zucchini. I'm probably leaving garlic is something we're also trying. Well, I've done garlic before, but not been that successful. So garlic, I'm trying
When
again.
did you plant your garlic?
So I planted them in the fall, and I have
Mhm.
some that started in the fall that has sprouted and everything. And then I started another round like in February. So we'll see. Cross my fingers.
So the ones that you planted in the fall, they'll probably be ready in like July, and then the ones in February, I would say probably like November, December.
Okay, I have to remember that. I need to
Yeah.
label which when I.
Yeah, label that so you can, because that's the way I learned. I was like, so the crazy story is real quick. The big box stores, they think gardening starts in like the spring, like right now. So they
Yeah,
put all the
yeah.
seeds out, they put all the fruits and vegetables out, but that's not always the right time to grow.
Right.
They just want to put it out there because they feel like the summer is about to come up. Most people might be home, so they convince people to buy stuff. But garlic is supposed to be planted in the fall, so you shouldn't be selling the garlic in the stores around this time because you're giving people a false sense of hope. You know what I'm saying? And I used to get it right now, put it in the ground, and then I get nothing. And I was like,
Hmm.
what happened? You know, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna try because I saw a video on YouTube, and I was successful last year with pink garlic, so I was really
Oh,
happy about that. But always, folks, just check and find out what you should be growing at what time you should be growing. And like you said, broccoli does horrible in the summertime. You know what I'm saying? So I tend not to grow that anymore
hmm.
until like the fall. And then usually by December, I get a whole bunch of beautiful broccoli. So just be careful, y'all out there, how you're growing. But continue. What else
Yeah.
you growing?
No, that's a great. I love that you said that because that used to be me. I would plant whatever they put in the store. Oh, this is the time to plant it, and it would not like work out. So definitely know your zone and the season, the when to grow stuff and varieties you can grow too. But yeah, I think I'm trying to think of what else I'm growing in the
Are you
garden.
growing any raspberries, any fruit trees, or anything like that?
So I have a blueberry tree bush thing that I actually have in a grow bag. That it looks like it's trying to bloom again, and yeah, bloom again. Well, not bloom, but um,
Fruit again,
like
bloom again.
fruit again, bloom again. Leaves are coming, so I'm like, okay, it's waking up again. I thought it was dead. I just had left that thing there in the grow bag. Didn't do nothing to it all winter. Didn't cover nothing, and it's actually coming back. And
Yeah, they're
so
pretty hardy. They're
yeah,
pretty hardy.
I didn't realize that about blueberries. So they're pretty hardy. I have a actually a fruit an apple tree that I put, and again, this is how you can get creative with planting and limited space, but I have an apple tree that's growing out of a big pot. And again, I thought it was dead, didn't do anything to it in the winter. I was like, it comes spring, I'm gonna get rid of this thing. And I see some like life in it, coming alive. And so,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I'm like, okay, this is cold hardy as well.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm not sure where you got it from, but if you did get it from a big box store, those fruit trees you get at a big box store anywhere in the country is native to that area. So if you go to
Oh,
a Home Depot or Lowe's right now, or Ace or
mhm,
Walmart, or Aldi's, all those good stores, and you find a fruit tree, they're gonna be native to that area. So you really don't have a problem with them growing and staying outside in the wintertime. The only time that you get that problem if it's something like a pomegranate tree
mhm,
or a dragon fruit, soursop, something that's really not native to this area. Like I do have a pomegranate tree that stays outside, and
mhm.
I got that from actually watching the pawpaw King on Instagram, and he had all these pomegranate trees, and I was like, "You have pomegranate trees? Every time I get one, it dies." And he was like, "Well, you got to get a certain kind that stays outside." So he informed me of all the varieties that can stay outside. So now they have one that's outside that actually bloomed
That's
and
cool.
produced last year, and I got like about 5 pomegranates. They were kind of small, but I was happy that I did it. But yeah, so those fruit trees are native, y'all, to your area, wherever you get them from, you know. So don't try to grow a mango tree in Maryland thinking you're gonna get some mangoes. I mean, it could possibly give you mangoes, but be very careful.
Yeah.
Um, have you ever thought about growing pineapples? I grow a lot of pineapples.
Yeah, actually, it's so funny you say that because I was gifted a pineapple plant from my dad. I don't know, Comedic Gardens. He's on Instagram as well. But
Okay.
I was gifted a pineapple plant. It's very tiny, but I did want to try the. I've seen a lot of people on Instagram. Cut off the head, the top of the pineapple, and plant it. So I have wanted to try that. I haven't tried that yet, but it's on the list of things to
You
do.
should try it the next time you get a pineapple. It might take 2 to 3 years to get a new pineapple, but
Yeah.
it is so worth seeing it pop up out of that plant. Whether I mean, you have to take it in the house during the wintertime, but you'll be so like giddy and excited to see it pop up. I done had 5 pineapples now,
Oh wow.
um, which is cool. But in my basement right now, I have about 12 of them. So I'm hoping that they
That's
would
a
sprout soon. And a young lady saw me on Facebook, and she lived in Hawaii, and she now lives in Maryland. And she said, "I have these pineapple plants from Hawaii. You should come to my house and get them, because I have too many." So that one is starting to fruit. So I'm really, really excited. So I gotta take some pictures. You'll be seeing a lot of pictures on my Instagram of that one, so I can show her because it's been like
yeah.
2 years now. But
That's awesome. That's
yeah,
impressive.
try to grow some pineapples if you can. Um, Let me see. What's my next question? It's I got a whole list of questions,
Oh
but
yeah. Okay.
I gotta. How often should we water our plants? Let's start from there.
How often? So, for me, I like look at the soil. If it looks dry, like I, put my finger in the soil. If like the first couple inches are dry, then I water it. Because you don't want it. There is such thing as overwatering. That's another lesson I had to learn too.
Mm-hmm.
Usually when it's dry or sometimes, so like in the summertime, I water usually first thing in the morning when it's cooler, before the sun hits the plants, and then also again in the evening time because the soil seems to dry up and plants they'll tell you when they need to be watered. They'll start to fall over and be limp, and you're like, what's happening? You know, they're mad. So it's probably that they need some water, especially if it's hot outside.
Okay.
But if it's not that hot outside and you're curious about, you know, how much water, just look at the soil and see, put your finger in and just see how dry it is. It'll tell you.
Okay, cool. Does your family get involved with gardening? I know you have a young toddler. Is she into gardening or he's into gardening?
It's a
Uh,
family affair. It's
Okay.
definitely a family affair. So my husband actually he does like a lot of the heavy lifting of the stuff. So right now we're actually renovating the garden beds. Right now we had to get rid of all of the wood. We didn't really treat the wood when we put them. We didn't know what we were doing. We just putting together some raised beds.
Yeah.
And so they were starting to rot. So something I had invested in is getting the Vago garden bed. So they're being renovated. But he does all like the heavy lifting of stuff and helps me with the soil. I do all the mixing. I do everything after putting the soil in. It's all me. But my daughter, she's super like loves to get in the dirt. She's inherited that gene. She loves playing in dirt. She's not afraid of it. She, you know, is watching me now. I got her a little play gardening toolkit like for little, you know, toddlers. So she goes out there with her little shovel and her little pot and little watering can and act like she's watering something.
That's what's up. I love that the family is really involved because usually it's like you have a garden and then it's like one person really doing all the work, but then that other person or that mate or that significant other is just like eating up all the food, but don't want to do no work.
No, everybody's working around here. It's
So
everybody.
that's a great thing. So I mean, speaking of wood and rotting wood, that's what we all go through. So that's not like a real big problem. I know when I went through it, I was like, build these garden beds, and I was so excited. And then a few years later, I was like, they're falling apart. What is going on? And so they definitely rotted out.
Yeah.
I don't think I treated it either. I'm not sure, but now I do have raised garden beds. And so I have about 12 raised garden bed, the metal ones, and I really, really like those. Speaking of Big Lots, they have them for $50, a 2x2 raised metal garden bed, which is really huge. It's 2 feet by
Yeah.
2 feet, and I was like, I got one, and I was like, this thing is huge. I was thinking it was gonna be small, but it's
Uh-huh.
huge. But I
Wow.
love it. How do you keep the pests away? We talked about it a little bit, but how do you?
Yeah. So I'm trying to take a like organic gardening approach and not add any chemicals, any inorganic chemicals at least. And so I actually have been trying to use companion planting with herbs, experimenting with that to see what, you know, pests don't like. So I'm
Hmm.
using like, you know, oregano for some stuff, some lavender, what was it, rosemary, any type of herb, basil I was using for like my tomatoes, but also using like was it nasturtiums and marigolds
Okay.
as well to help you know, combat pests. But look, if you're not using any type of chemicals, you're gonna have to really do a lot of, you know, hand maintenance and get in that garden to like pick off the different pests yourself, because that's something I really noticed with those tomatoes last year, because I wasn't using any chemicals in my garden. And I had to go in every single day, inspect the leaves and see if there's any type of pest in there. And if there was, then I just pick it off and kill it. But
That's what's up. That is
I,
that's a job within itself in
it
gardening.
is a job.
And I
It
think
is.
that's a deterrent sometimes for people that they have to fight with the bugs. But
Yeah.
hey, that's part of gardening. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
And I saw the live with gardening and under influence with Erica.
Erica.
And y'all mentioned that you know, if the bugs don't want to eat it, then I don't want it either. And that's kind of how I
That's how I kind of feel now. At first, I was
Yeah.
like, when I first started too, and the really bugs started taking over, I was like, oh, I don't want it.
Yeah.
But now it's like, hey, that's
Yeah.
what it is. But like you said, I get some marigolds and
Mhm.
all those plants. But all those plants too, you can eat as well.
Yeah.
And so I put those plants in salads and drinks and all
Yeah.
kinds of crazy stuff. So get y'all some edible flowers that can deter pests too. How often do you fertilize?
I fertilize. So initially, I'll add like the granular the slow release fertilizer in the beginning when I start setting up my beds in the soil, and then like once I start putting in the seedlings, the transplants into the ground, I usually will use some fish emulsion fertilizer every 2 weeks. I have like a schedule on my phone that alarms me time to
What's up?
fertilize. Yeah, that's usually what I use. Epsom salt. Well, no, not really Epsom salt as much, but more so fish emulsion.
Okay, and fish emulsion. I use that too. Um, Not a lot because it's funky, and
Oh yeah,
and I
yeah.
bring it in the house sometimes,
No,
and it's
I
very
can't think
funky.
of any
But
words.
I actually put it in like a water jug or a water bottle with a sprayer, and
Hmm.
I spray some of the leaves. So if you want your leaves to be really, really green and beautiful,
Oh,
you spray it on the leaves. Not when it's real, real hot. Maybe at
yeah.
nighttime you could do it because it'll definitely will burn them during the daytime. But if you spray them at nighttime on the
Uh-huh.
leaves, your leaves will be really, really green. So I'm into video. That's my background, video on photography.
Hmm.
So it always look good when you have these really nice green popping green plants. So that's a trick.
Yeah.
That's a trick you could do. But that stuff definitely stinks. And it works.
It
Um
does. It does work, but
yeah.
it
So I
smells.
guess it's fish poop, I guess, because I have turtles here at the house and I
Uh-huh.
dump out the turtle water near the backyard, well near the back door, which is a cherry tree right there, and I dump it right there. And I'm telling you that cherry tree is huge.
I bet.
It fruits a lot. And I was like, I'm gonna keep putting that turtle water right there, which sounds gross. But yeah, turtle water. What is your favorite vegetable you like to eat and actually plant?
So I have a lot of, one that I started last year, which actually I don't want to call it my favorite. I don't really know if I have a favorite vegetable, but what was fun to grow was corn. Corn was really cool to grow. It's a funny story because when I used to go visit my grandfather and he had like a whole field of corn growing, and I used to think like, oh wow, I wonder how many years it took for that corn to grow. I didn't know it took like a one season, like just a season for a corn to grow from seed. And so I like corn on the cob. I like cream corn. I like corn. And so last year was kind of cool just starting it from seed and seeing I could actually harvest it in the same season. So I thought that corn was pretty cool to grow.
That's cool. I do something called corn ribs now, which
Oh,
you take the corn and you slice it in half, and then you slice it in quarters, and then you kind of sit them in cold water, and they kind of bend like this,
uh-huh.
almost like a rib, almost. And then you season it up like you would do like a pork rib or a beef rib, and then you
Oh,
can air fry it or you can put it in the oven.
that sounds
Um,
good.
it's a corn rib. I do have a post on my Instagram, but it's way, way down the timeline. If you
Okay.
want to check it
I
out,
can see that one. That
I
sounds cool.
might push it forward. But corn ribs. Any other like recipes? What's like a favorite dish that you do other than the corn with the things that you harvest? Because that was my main concern when I first started gardening.
Hmm.
Like I was growing all this stuff, but I didn't know how to prepare it. I didn't know how to eat it.
Yeah.
What are some things that you make with the vegetables in your garden?
So I like to do a lot of soups like in the wintertime, but again, like, you don't have a lot of vegetables in the wintertime, but soups was my big thing. I can just throw everything in a one potter and, let it do its thing. But in the summertime, something that was really good that we made was some fried green tomatoes. Like, and it's so simple because it's just a tomato but I used basically a lot of veggies, like all the veggies in that were growing in the garden. So I used some tomatoes that were growing. I used some little onions that had sprouted. I used the corn to make like a little corn relish on top,
Oh, that's
and
uh,
it was so good. That was really good. But I try to incorporate like all of the vegetables in my garden, if I can, into a dish. Or if it's just one piece of a vegetable, I try to add it to another dish. But yeah.
cool. Are you into canning or saving or freeze drying and stuff? Talk about that.
Yeah, so actually, I have been experimenting with canning over the past couple of years. Gotten the pickles down because we again one year we just had a lot of cucumbers, so we just had to do something with it. and pickle it. And so pickled cucumbers, pickled jalapenos, tomatoes. Since I had so many tomatoes last year, we canned a lot of them, but again, we ate them like right away, so they didn't last that long. But
Oh no.
this year, I'm hoping to do a lot more canning as well because, again, I want to be as sustainable as possible, live off of our garden. 45% like living off your garden is pretty impressive. So I'm trying to get there, but I'm definitely going to be doing a lot more canning as well with different things.
That's what's up. DIY Gardner said she did the corn ribs last year and they were the best. So I'm gonna post another reel or something about the corn ribs
Yeah.
so people can see it, so it can be fresh in people's minds. So they can get hip to corn ribs because they the move.
Yeah.
So right about this time, when I get everything really, I'm still working on this process. But
Mhm.
once I do my spring break, I work in education. I have a spring break. I'm gonna get this iRig thing together. Our iRig thing is to hook my mixer up, and then I'll have this sound bite that comes up said the Black Gardener Talk question table question of the week, and it'll come up. So the Black Table question of the week to you is: are women gardeners better than men gardeners? What's your take?
you know, that's a good question. I mean, I don't like to look at it that way, but I mean, it's a good question. I think that, I don't know. It's mixed because like I think women are looked at as more so like the smaller gardens, the little delicate like, something on my patio or my deck and some flowers, and where men are looked at like farmers, like they're gonna, grow the food for the whole world. And I think that like nowadays, women are starting to do that too. Are starting to farm. Like women are bad as bad as men as farmers. And so I don't think I would necessarily say women are better, but I think women are more so doing some of the same stuff now that men are perceived to be doing as far as the gardening and the farming stuff. So, yeah.
That's what's up. Two Green Thumb says messy.
That's a messy question. So
Messy question. And I thought it, not to be messy or anything, I just thought it would be fun to get your perspective on it. Just because I know when I entered gardening and started gardening, everybody was like, that is a girl thing. Why are you doing that? That's a girl thing. You know what I'm saying? But men were always the breadwinners back in the day. Even
Mhm.
from slavery, we would do the grunt work, and then the women would come back and then kind of help harvest and then and cook it. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so I was like, that was a crazy question. Or people when those comments were coming out
Mhm.
were quite crazy. So I thought I'll ask that question to you, since you are a woman and it is Women's History Month.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I thought I'd ask you, how do you know when is the last frost date? Um, yeah, first frost or
First,
last
last,
frost date?
you
How do
know,
you know? Because I
I'm
don't know.
truly,
Because I'm scared really because April could be a tricky month. They said in this little book, here's my almanac. Real
yeah.
quick, let me get my family. This says April 7th.
No, that's not right. Like you live in DC. DC weather is unpredictable. I'm actually struggling with that right now because I want to put some stuff in the ground, but again, when is the last frost? Because last year I put stuff in the ground, I think right after that April, whatever day it was, and then it was a freeze right after. And so I'm just like,
Did you run outside like what I did one time? I had to run outside with Home Depot buckets and put the buckets over the top of it and put blankets and cloth over it. I was like, not this year.
yeah, no, I got like a tarp, like the little plastic tarp or the big plastic tarp, and I just threw that bad boy on top of all the raised beds. And most of the stuff made it out alive, and the stuff that didn't, I had to go buy some seedlings for and replace. But I'm struggling this year to identify at least the last frost. But as far as the first frost, usually around like I feel like Halloween is around the time we start seeing that first frost. So I kind of like use that as a marker for last frost time. I think the almanac says like November first week or
Yeah.
second November, but it usually comes sometimes depending on the week or the year. It might be in October, late October. So
late October. And then it can go all the way until like May. I think one year
yeah,
this year was
yeah,
like it got a really cold spell in May, you know.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
What kind of tools and equipment do you use? I'm
Um,
curious. Because I
I,
only use my hands and a shovel most of the time. I bought some fancy stuff like these drill bits, these big old drill bits that drill a hole, but they didn't really work for me, and I feel like I've wasted my money. But I just used a little hand shovel and a bigger shovel if I'm big in a big hole. But what kind of tools and equipments do you use?
so I usually just use a little a little hand shovel, or I have like a bigger hand shovel, but I just use a little hand shovel and my gloves, my hands sometimes, depending on how, my nails are looking in. But that's pretty much all I use. It's just a little mini shovel and my hands, and I have like a little small gardening bag that I keep like, my different stuff. Like if I want some labels or the little organza bags, I put everything in that little bag. But that's pretty much not a lot of stuff. And then um I have like a harvesting basket, but also too, if I'm like trying to pick off dead leaves or anything, I just, have that basket to put that in as well.
Okay. You talked about labels.
Hmm.
Now, me, I do not label anything.
Oh, you're brave.
I did not label anything. At first I did, but then I was like, I just be throwing the seeds in the ground, and then I was like, what was that? What was that? And then it finally comes up, and I was like, oh, oh. How do you keep your labels from like I think I think I got kind of like upset about the labels because I would write with that little permanent marker, but then
Hmm.
it would go away,
Yeah.
and so I couldn't keep track of it. So I was like, "Well, what the hell? I'll just throw the seeds in there." I kind
Right.
of know what it is. How do you make sure that your labels are like really great and not washing off and different things like that?
So it's funny you say that because that would happen to me as well. Like I had the permanent marker, and then the writing would wear off. But as I started gardening more, I by the point when the label was gone, like the writing was gone, I knew what was growing just based off of the type of leaves that were growing. The variety was another question. Didn't know the variety, but I knew what type of plant was growing, and so um, yeah, I just use like the plastic labels and a permanent marker, and they're more useful for me, at least for the seedlings.
Okay.
As far as identifying the seed, well, as far as identifying the variety of the seedlings before I put it down, and then because sometimes like cabbage and broccoli and collard green, they kind of look a little
They
bit.
all look alike. Yeah.
Yeah, so those kind of help me to know like, okay, I'm planting, broccoli over here, collards over here, and cabbage. But once they start getting to a nice size and you can see, then I'm just like, those labels aren't really useful to me anymore. But I do want to start like repurposing them because I was like, I have a bunch of them that have been used and they might still have writing on them. And I just want to, be able to repurpose them again and clean them off. So I'm trying to like maybe use some vinegar or something. I don't know. I might put a reel one day about how I clean off the labels and reuse them because I think that's pretty helpful for those using labels.
And DIY Gardner said oil-based paint markers will be good.
Oh,
Yeah, maybe I need to do that. But like you said,
yeah.
um, some of those plants look alike. I remember, so I had these. I thought I had collard greens, and I was like, "Hey, I have some collard greens." You know, they end up being broccoli,
That happened to me.
and
That
I didn't have no collard greens that year, and I was so mad because I swore out up and down that they were collard greens, and it turned out to be broccoli. So I do have to get better with that. But I do designate my garden boxes now for certain things because there is an area in my yard where I do put like all my greens and kale and lettuce and cool kind of weather crops
yeah.
over to the side because they don't like the heat. You know what I'm saying? So I do keep them to a side where I don't get a lot of sun. So that's my cool weather area, and so I
Uh-huh.
kind of know what goes in that area. I do try to switch it up. So they said you should rotate. So I try to rotate, but I haven't had any problems without rotating. I'll put the peas, the snot peas in the same place every year and they do well every year. I have not changed that out.
Okay.
Yeah, I have not changed that out. Do you rotate your garden?
So I have been practicing rotating in the past few years. Only because certain pests, I noticed last year there was a lot of, pests for the tomatoes. And so I'm trying to rotate them to a different bed within the garden. And also to not just rotating because of the pests, but also because of sunlight, of how the sun hits the backyard, and different plants might shade others that might not get a lot of sun. So I'm also rotating as well because of that, just experimenting about, which plant provides, enough shade, more the shade needed for this type of vegetable to grow, or doesn't block the sun. No, so they need to have full sun as well.
Okay. And then I got two more questions.
Okay.
Composting. Are you into composting? Do you do composting? Do you have compost bin? Did you get it from Aldi's? Did you get it from Idols?
So that's something new I do want to try this year, because we go through so many food scraps, and it's just a shame how much like we could be composting and turning back into, food for our soil. And so that's something I really, really am going to try to invest in this year. Not like spend a bunch of money, but like, probably get like a little composter. I've seen people who have like buckets and different things. And I think I might get something. If Lidl has something, I will get something from Lidl, because I know it's going to be affordable. But just start off with that. I think I tried to do like the banana peels. I would just, because I drink a lot of smoothies and go through banana peels all the time. And so I threw them out back in the raised beds, and I mean, my plants did pretty well. So definitely
Okay,
want
cool.
to do that.
Now, when you're making your smoothies, are you doing that in a blender? Blender. There's a reason why I'm asking that. Do you have a
Okay.
blender, and do you crush them up or make your smoothies in blenders?
Yeah, I use a blender.
Okay. So right before you clean it, you take it and then you fill it with water and then you shake it up again or blend it again with that leftover residue in there of your smoothie, and you can pour that in your garden as well. And then
Oh,
go in there and clean it with the soap detergent and all that good stuff.
oh, that's a good one. Okay, I'm gonna definitely try that one.
So that's one of my tips. So I have a Vitamix. I have one of those expensive Vitamix that costs on like $700. And so every time I make a smoothie, I'll make sure I'll put some extra water in there and
Yeah.
and whip it up again, and then I'll pour it outside. It could be in my front yard because my kitchen sits on the front side of my house. So I
Okay.
just go out the front door and then I'll pour it in the tulips and the the
Yeah.
the volunteer pomegranate tree that's out there now. So I think people should do that too. When you're making your smoothies, take that leftover residue and compost it. Also, Vitamix has a composting machine that you can get compost in like 24 hours. So if you got like your fruit scraps,
Yeah.
you can put it in there and then it turns into a little thing of compost, and then you can, fill your compost bin up with it,
Uh-huh.
or you can just go ahead and just dump it in your vegetables garden bed, almost like fertilizer, or yeah, you feeding it. So I'm a Vitamix supporter. I
Yeah.
test products, so I got one of those composters. So I
Uh-huh.
try to do that on a weekly basis and just like dump it. Recently I just been dumping it and putting it in a big old 5 gallon bucket, and then
Mhm.
eventually I'm going to put that in my compost bin. But I did get my compost bin from Aldi's maybe 6 7 years ago. It's a 60 gallon one,
Uh-huh.
cost $29. Last week Urban Veggie Queen, who might be on today, said they had some at Aldi's. But check around, folks, for composting bins if you're not composting. Look into Vitamix. There's a couple other companies that does those electric ones that can have compost in like a day or two. Look into that, and let's start composting because it can save the world. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? We don't
That,
want all that trash and
right.
stuff out there in the atmosphere because they throw off greenhouse gases, and that's not good for the environment. Hey, Gingerfoot Garden. Um,
Hey, Lainey.
yeah, she said hello to you earlier. So this, if you have any questions, we got a few more minutes because she got a hard time that she has to get out. If you have any questions for Alexis, put it in the little question box. We love to hear from you. Throw some more cherries in the room because this was her first time doing a live. Hopefully, she can get on and do more lives now. now that she's not really afraid of doing the lives. So if you have some questions for her, put it in the question box. But you can also see the replay of this later on today on YouTube and of course Apple Podcasts. Black Gardener Talk is now on Apple Podcasts, and I'm trying to get all the shows up as soon as possible so y'all can be on there. On YouTube is the video, you can see the video, and then on the Apple Podcast or Spotify podcast, I have my little opening, I have the music. You gotta check it out at least once on Apple Podcast so you can hear the opening and all the music come together. But my last and final question, if no one has a question, is what are your future plans for the gardening? Are you going to start a business? Are you just going to keep growing for your family? What's the future look like?
So I definitely would love to like learn, you know, my garden, my home garden is where I learn everything. I would like to eventually, I don't know, I don't even know if it's worth it, but I would love to like, you know, take a master gardener class just to learn any new stuff that I don't know. But I've gotten a lot of people, you know, that reached out, have so many questions. Oh, how do you, you know, grow this? Or how do you, you know, maintain this? Or how do you build a raised bed? How do you start a garden? And I would eventually like to, you know, tap into like garden consulting at some point. Just figuring out my time and schedule, but I would like to consider getting into garden consulting and helping others, you know, get their garden started to grow food, because it's now becoming more popular. People are realizing the importance of growing your own food, especially with the food shortages happening, but also just knowing what you're putting in your body and your food. You know, you can control that by growing your own stuff. So definitely want to help people do that, potentially in a garden consulting format, I guess.
That's what's up. I think you should take a master gardening class. There's so many different classes here in the city. And
Yeah.
since you live in DC, one, there's UDC, who has a beautiful master gardening class. But there is also some other places. So I do work in the school system, and we have a place called the Washington Youth Garden. Come and they help with our school garden, and they offer a program. I think it's like a 6 month program. Fairly, I believe it might be free, but you just got to work with the Washington Youth Garden, and then they put you in a school setting and you help volunteer hours do that. But then there's City Blossoms. There's the Green Scheme that was on a couple weeks with Mr. Ronnie Weber. They offer these master garden classes fairly cheap, so I think you should do it, and I think you should become a garden coach and
Yeah.
and teach people, because that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just nailed a couple more garden consultations this week, so I'm really excited about that. Two of them are brand new gardeners, and then three are like just they've been doing it, but they haven't done it in a while, so they need some
Okay.
assistance. But yeah, Alexis has been great. Oh yeah, so she did this video, y'all. We did the 5-star gardener video. I want to thank you for actually doing that. These ladies have been on all month long, went out in their gardens and they shot videos, and then they send them to me, and I actually had the chance to edit them up. You can go on my profile, you can go on my stories, you can see it. I really thank you for doing that and taking the time out to do that. I think it was great. But I love that you were able to get on today. I'm keeping it to 12 o'clock so you can go. Um, um, but yeah, I thank you so much. If you ever need me for anything, holler at me. If you want to do some more collaborations on videos,
Yeah, definitely.
let me know. And I look forward to seeing you out there in the garden world. Um,
Thank you so much, Kamani. I appreciate, you know, the opportunity to talk to another gardener live and release some of my nervousness on being live. So I enjoyed this conversation and I appreciate it.
And do more lives. I think I've built my following now on live, so I want to stay consistent. I
Uh-huh.
was very nervous from the first time I got on, which was
Yeah.
only last summer. And I look back at those videos now and I was like, oh my God, that was horrible. But I feel like I own it now. And I
Yeah.
think I do build my following. I have built my following here, so I want to be different from everybody else. I mean, there's a lot of gardeners out there, and I feel like sometimes these gardeners do recycle stuff, and I don't want to be a recycler. Not on Instagram, but a recycler outside in the yard. But I
Yeah.
want to have my take on everything. But I do thank you. I want to let you go so you can um do your prior commitments that you need to do on Saturday. I have to get ready because I gotta go to work, and And I need to get some soil out of my car before I go to work. But thank you so much. Like I said, if you need me for anything, how to start the business, how to get people to coach you, how to build your following up even more on social media, I can help you with that. There is
Thank
a
you.
way that you could do it, and I'm following those tools now, and I think we all need to do it. Green Thumbs, Urban Veggie Queen, Pink Lasers, Mr. Bumpers, everybody, thank you for joining us. Check out the replay if you didn't see the beginning of this show on YouTube, Apple Pod Music, and then next week we have Vanessa Pierre coming through. She got me started. She got me the one on camera live, and that
Okay.
was an experience too. Right before I actually started doing a lot of these lives, she's the one who really got me into it, and her friend is building my website, which will be out in a couple of weeks, and really
Oh,
excited, y'all. Just keep tuning in, tell people about it. This is growing. I want people to be on the inside when it blows up. When it blows up, it's going to blow up. You know what I'm saying?
all right. All right.
All right, so I'm going to let you go. It's 12 o'clock. All right, thank you. Peace out.
Thank you so much. All right.